Oh, there's other extras.
No.
Marcy,
I'm listing roll call.
development coordinator.
Find increased cost.
Use that title a different one today. Give yourself a new title.
I'm taking this home now. Just trying to get some Kleenex, but.
This meeting started.
It's on It's better know before, during the meetings.
It's nice.
Here, I'll help guide you.
Just throw the door, Manny.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Put it on the side, yeah. Made it.
Gentle.
We're all great.
Yeah, we won't wait, we'll start it.
That's why people don't ask me to assemble furniture for them.
That's better than ending up with a whole bunch of parts that you.
Yeah.
That they don't know what they were supposed to go
He
to.
isn't coming usually.
Like a classic IKEA home, right? They just put extra bits in there. Just very good at assembling IKEA furniture. Very good at it. I always tell my nieces and nephews that, you know, the little, what are they, the chocolates that have the Kinder Joy? Oh, yeah. That's like the prerequisite to IKEA furniture. So you start with that, and then you move your way up to IKEA. That's cute. Yeah.
Oh, yes, if you, thank you. Yeah.
I like cute furniture. There's really more stuff. It's the Gibsons. They play record, they put in cabinets. Very nice.
Viewers celebrate, or we're just.
My grandma's are out in our house in Tiger.
Yes.
Yeah, it's way more.
Yeah, she's,
Way better.
So many titles.
yeah, you'll get. Not.
1869.
So there's, she just did a check.
Yes.
Somebody mentioned maybe Friday at Elvis. Wasn't intimidating at all, like, what do you mean?
Tears are coming.
Doing something like it's short in French.
I will call to order our regular meeting of Town of Gibsons Council for June 6, 2023 at 7 p.m. We're honored to gather on the traditional territories of the Squamish Nation, and I'd like to our staff table to make an introduction of a new face there.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to introduce our new youth audio and visual support tech, Andrew Maxwell, who will be providing audio-visual support for council meetings. Andrew is a student at Elphinstone Secondary School. He is part of the Elphinstone leadership class, treasurer and co-president-elect of the Elphinstone Interact Club. a volunteer for Eastlink Community TV, and he currently runs all the audio-visual equipment for school assemblies. Andrew has been interested in all things technology since a young age. Please join me in welcoming Andrew.
First, we have our first item on the agenda, after calling the meeting to order, is approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? That's straightforward. Yeah, our agenda is adopted. We have 4 sets of minutes to adopt. May 2nd, May 16th, May 23rd, and May 24th. Moved by Councillor Kroll. Oh, got the corporate officer.
Sorry, I should have jumped in sooner. I didn't catch it, but you did have an addition to the agenda that you wish to move today.
Okay.
You had the addition of a report by Director of Infrastructure Services.
Oh, right, yeah. So,
You need a new motion.
just give me a minute here, because I have that. If someone else has the wording of that handy. Okay, I think this is it. So we have could I get a motion to add to the agenda item 5.9, Director of Infrastructure Services regarding sanitary sewer capital plan? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded Councillor Lumley. Yeah, and the reason for this is it's an exciting opportunity that just came up today, and the director will report to us more about that verbally. All those in favor? That motion carries. So we've added to the agenda, and we had a, I think we had a, did we have a seconder to adopt the, I'm gonna start that over again. Yeah, I just want to start that over again because, to adopt the minutes, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? That motion carries to adopt the minutes of May 2nd, May 16th, May 23rd, and May 24th. And then we have committee reports, Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting minutes, and Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. That's the May 11th for the Accessory Advisory, and May 16th. We need to adopt those too. Moved by Councillor DeAndrade, seconded by Councillor Lumley. All those in favor? That motion carries. And then administration reports. I spoke to our Director of Finance about these earlier. There's no report. This is just, or no verbal report. This is the standard statement of financial information and reporting on council remuneration, expenses, and contracts that comes forward every year. That is standard that we have to approve. So I'll ask if there are any questions. Anyway, and seeing none, could I get a motion to move the statement of financial information for the year ended December 31st, 2022? I saw moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor DeAndrade. All those in favor? That motion carries. And then the next reporting, I don't see a recommendation that we need to follow, but it comes with the SOFI, really. I think is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's actually, we bring it to the same time as the SOFI report. It's just presented to, a requirement to present to council for information.
Okay.
So no resolution needed, just to make sure that you receive their information every year.
So I think the same information was in the SOFI report, but I'll ask if there are any questions on item 5.2. Okay, seeing none. 5.3 is a report from the Planning Department on a renewal of an expired form and character development permit for renovations at 1036 Seamount Way. As the report explains, this is a renewal, and the property owner had some delays, supply chain delays, and other challenges in getting this work done, so is seeking renewal of that permit. Are there any questions for staff? Councillor DeAndrade, and I believe planning staff is available, and we've got our.
Give them a moment.
Okay. Okay, I saw a name of a planner there, so let's put out that question. Okay, Councillor DeAndrade, you have a question?
Thank you. Mayor, I just saw, because the report talks about a bird deflector, but I was just trying to understand what kind of deflector the developer is contemplating, or perhaps the planning department is proposing.
I think it's just, okay, I'll look to the planning department. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. The original permit was issued with a requirement of bird deflection, I don't know if that's the right word, to be proposed and approved through staff. So it is a permit condition that the developer expressed at the time they would address with window treatments. So that
okay.
would remain a condition in the current permit.
Thank you. I just want to confirm
Okay.
that was window. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? And Councillor Kroll moves
Moving the recommendation.
the recommendation for renewal, seconded by Councillor DeAndrade. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor? That motion carries. On to item 5.4, which is a form and character development permit for a proposed mixed-use development at 826 Gibsons Way. This is a project we're familiar with from previous iterations coming to council, and also the ADP. The recommendation is that it be issued subject to incorporating an additional pedestrian crossing on the east side of the commercial building across the driveway. Are there any questions from Councillor DeAndrade?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I was just, because there's option 2 as well. And I would like council to discuss, because option 2 also contemplates a roof design elements to the roof of the commercial building. When I look at the project, I felt, I mean, the project is really beautiful, but I felt that it just this monolith is the roof, right? It looks like really that the building is on the side. And I think the proposal here, the suggestion to incorporate roof design elements, I think it will give like a more affront, because both commercial buildings and the residential buildings, they are basically on their side, they're facing east-west. And so if council, perhaps council agrees with that, I think it would be important. And also the number C as well, include possible universal accessible design standards for the amenity space, sidewalks, and crossings.
I'd like to look to Councillor Kroll to see if this came up in the ADP, because it's.
Through you, Mayor White, they were elements that were discussed at the ADP. It was felt that the roof exposure facing Gibson's Way was a bit expensive, and breaking it up with either dormers or a clear story light might improve it visually. It could be something purely cosmetic. The amenity space at the back, because of the contour of the property, it's low at the front and it rises towards the back. There was some issue with people that had any accessibility issues having access to that raised amenity space at the back, because it ostensibly would only be accessible from the first story. So it was just suggested that some consideration be made to make it more accessible. Were there any people in the building that had mobility issues? And also with respect to the sidewalks, the way the developer is doing the sidewalks in the project, they're sort of like raised, almost like pillows, that when we refer to the speed bump pillows. So they're ramped on both sides. The sidewalks serve both as speed bumps and sidewalks. So it controls traffic flow, traffic speed, and providing the access space. There was a little confusion over the east accessible access to the property. The west access, again, because of the slope of Gibsons Way, the west access to the property is at grade, so it's easily accessible. Because of the slope of the property, there was concern that there should be a second access, but the way the sidewalk has been created on the east side of the property, it does solve the issue. So it was a bit confusing in the information that came out of the ADP, that it didn't need to be a second access. Initially, it was proposed as a second access on the west side of the driveway, but it's not necessary because it's in existence on the east side of the driveway. It's already there. Did that confuse it or clarify?
Well, I'll look to our planning department too to comment on this option. Because perhaps even after ADP, the planning department may have had some communications with the developer, I don't know.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So in terms of the accessibility to the amenity space, it's accessible from the first level. So you would go through the lobby into the elevator, and then you would be able to access that through from grade. I think the APC were suggesting that if you wanted to access that amenity space from the outside, you would need to go up some stairs. However, there is access inside the building, and so that's what the developer had suggested would be more amenable to those that have some issues.
Okay, thank you. So that was interest expressed in option 2, I heard. Are there any more questions for staff on this question? Councillor DeAndretti.
Perhaps if they have discussed the roof design, if the incorporation of some elements.
I'll look to planning to address that.
Is it possible to increase the volume?
Yeah, we're struggling to hear.
Oh, I'll come a bit closer to see if that helps. There hasn't been any major conversations. That they are happy to carry out the resolution if that's necessary. It's up to council, and as it exists now, it does conform with the development permit guidelines.
Okay. Other questions from council? Colton.
Thank you. I was wondering if this variation of the design incorporates the sidewalk setback from the highway, as I saw was one of the requirements of the zoning, or like it was supposed to be like recommended or something like that.
That was an earlier recommendation, I believe, to provide room on beside the highway for bike lane, I think. I'll look to staff to answer this.
So because it's not a variance now, it's just a development permit, they aren't providing the 5-meter highway reserve covenant, but they are setting the building back by 4.5 meters. And that's a setback that has been asked for by MOTI. And so they are complying in some respect, but not providing the covenant.
Okay, so there will be space there for MOTI to expand the road and the length that they wanted to. Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Looking to council to ask any further questions or put forward a motion. Yeah, go, Colton.
I guess as a high schooler, being around that area, because this building would be right next to the high school, right? Students like to go out at lunch a lot and enjoy shops around the area, so I really appreciate that these shops are being included along the sidewalk, but I would also like to support the motion to change the roof on it, because as students go through those areas a lot, I feel like the aesthetics of it is something that matters to students as well.
Okay. I'm just looking at the ADP said possibly adding detail to the roof of the commercial building. So it's not like a clear recommendation, but look at Councillor Lumley.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think quite possibly in a commercial setting, it's not the outside of the roof, it's the inside of the roof because it's being used for commercial purposes. So it's, because that will be a commercial area, right? There you're talking about the roof on the, yeah. I think it'll lessen the value to a commercial renter if it's like the symmetry of that roof line is adaptable to like a multiple of businesses. That's what I would say. There's probably like mezzanines and so on and so forth in there. So I don't know. I don't have a problem with the roof, but I'm just making an example of why it might be like what it is, like that solid roof, so that people can actually minimize or maximize the space inside in a commercial.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor. I like the varied roof lines that are being presented here. So much about this is there's plenty of parking for cars and bikes, substantial landscaping, well-placed loading bays. I think it looks great. I'm thumbs up.
We need a motion. Councillor Lumley? Moving the recommended option, which is on our agenda, including so that includes incorporating the additional pedestrian crossing on the east side. Yeah, okay. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Thompson. Discussion of the motion, Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor White. I think, the developer is trying to create a saleable commodity in the community. So, I think he's probably well aware of the points that were brought up at the ADP, and, it would be at his discretion if he wished to sort of follow through. But, it behooves him to, deliver to the community a saleable product. So I would imagine that he would, take into consideration the other recommendations that were made by the ADP. So I'm happy to support the motion as it sits.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor? That motion carries. Now we're on to 5.5, which is a form and character development permit for a proposed 3-story industrial building at 1026 Venture Way. And that recommendation is simply that permit be issued. Are there questions on this one? Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor White. The only thing I'm going to say is this project was, just enthusiastically received by the ADP. It's a beautiful addition to the industrial park, considering what has existed on the site until just recently when it was cleared. I think about the only disappointment we had was when we inquired how many people they were going to employ, and they said it was only about 8 to 10 people. But the interior plan is well thought out. It's designed with accessibility issues taken into consideration. So it's, I think it's a fabulous addition to the industrial park. And that was generally the unanimous feeling of the ADP.
Great, yeah, and 8 to 10 people is That's something, that's good, yeah, much more than how many people were employed there before. Yeah. Yeah, exterminators. Councillor DeAndrade?
Thanks, Mayor. It's a thumbs up for this project. I was quite impressed, and it feels like that our industrial area is becoming very, very pretty. So I was really happy to see, and of course, I support the recommendation, but I wanted just to say that for industrial project is really, really nice.
Okay, does anyone want to move it then? Moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor DeAndrade. Any more discussion on this one? All those in favor of the motion? That motion carries. And then 5.6, also from the Planning Department, which is a zoning amendment to amend RGA use from 3 consecutive months to 3 selected months in a calendar year. There's a report on this with options. This is something that council already set out a direction on, and it just needs a bylaw change at this point. Unfortunately, we recognized at the time that it was going to, even just for a relatively small change in the context of all the changes or all the parts of the RGA process, it did, because the language was clear, it required a bylaw amendment. So regarding that bylaw amendment, the staff has a report here. Basically I think the main question we're facing is, do we waive the public hearing for this one bylaw amendment to just move forward with it? Or do we actually have a public hearing for it, because it is a bylaw amendment, and that's that could be called for. Councillor Lumley?
Yeah, I'll move option 1.
Okay. Seconder? Seconded by Councillor DeAndrade. Okay.
That's okay, I can second.
Okay. Discussion? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I think one thing that would be really important is to communicate with the public, just not to cause any, doubts, because some people who live beside might think that, right now the way we read the bylaw, it's 3 consecutive months, so you don't want to get surprised. So I think it's very important, and to have some, whether the newsletter or perhaps perhaps letters from neighbors around, just to avoid any uncertainty or questions, I think unnecessary, right, or backlash or something.
I think we can get the word out. I mean, this also, it's been at least a couple months, I think, since council first put this out there, and it was reported in the newspaper that we were moving in this direction. And so I think people have heard about it for a while. And I think communications-wise, my understanding is people still need to select their months. It says selected months, so neighbors would be able to find out, is my understanding, which months each operation is actually operating. More discussion on this? All those in favor? The motion carries. And now this is not the planning department. So now moving on to our development coordinator on encroachment agreements for 263 Gower Point Road and a bylaw amendment. And I don't know, I'm going to invite Marcy to speak to this one.
Thank
First
you, Mayor.
report.
It's my first time.
Yeah.
So the report that I brought forward is for an encroachment agreement for 263 Gower Point Road. Their building and design was accepted in 2020 April by the former council. But the building has awnings that encroach a little bit, about just over a meter on School Road and Gower Point Road. And we require an encroachment agreement for those awnings to be built. But as I said, they're already part of the design of that building, which was already went through the DP process and was accepted. And then the other part of the report is that our currently our encroachment bylaw does not support, or it's a bit of a process for encroachments for awnings, because through the DP process, they can be accepted in a building design. And then if they're encroaching over a sidewalk, it means that staff again has to come to council to ask for the encroachment. So staff is seeking direction from council in order to review the bylaw to see if there's a way of streamlining this process.
And both those are in the recommendation. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Lumley?
I hope this isn't too silly of a question, but the easement or the encroachment agreement, it's in the name of, like, the personal name of the developer. Is there a reason is there a reason for that, or like instead of his company name or the development company? I know, I just wondered why it was kind of interesting that it was in his personal name.
The encroachment would go with the property owner. So the property owner on title is his personal name. And it was his lawyer that drafted the encroachment. So they would have had a choice if it was to go in a business name.
Yeah, Councillor Lumley?
Now, I purchased one of the units. I don't know, am I recusing myself from this discussion? Or at least voting on it? Do I have to recuse myself? Would I? Do you think? Is it that?
I'd recommend it, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I'll do that right now.
I think I might have noticed that in agenda review.
Well, part of my,
Good thing you're the one who
I mean,
needs
it's
to do
his
it.
name on here, and I know you said that he owns the property, but I've already entered into a purchase and sale agreement with him for the one property, so I'll recuse myself from.
A good call.
I'll go outside now.
Okay. Were you asking why the agreement wasn't with you, or?
Maybe.
Okay. Is there a mover for this? Moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor DeAndrade. All those in favor, or I'll ask if there's any more discussion first. Yeah, go ahead.
Are we moving to streamline the process as well?
The recommendation, yeah. So the second part of the recommendation is that staff be directed to review the bylaw and to determine how to streamline the encroachment process.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Seeing no other questions, all those in favor? The motion carries. Like he's timing his way back, yeah. And item 5.8 is regarding the Grants of Assistance Program, or actually, it was previously the Grants of Assistance Program, but it was a line item and more recently for Sunshine Coast Victim Services. When we made the decision in budget to make some space in this this budget area, for policing largely. We cut this line item, and I said I would look into it further, and because I was under the impression that really this was something that communities over 5,000 were expected to pay for, and also received traffic fine revenue to help to pay for. And we weren't in either of those, well, we're not in that category. So I tried to find a rationale for what communities under 5,000 should be paying, which was challenging. But it's explained in my report, really. That we, fortunately, CAO Machado and I had a discussion with the City of Duncan about how it's been handled there. Through the regional district, so that helped inform us, and had some information from the provincial government on that as well. So that's all in the report. Are there any questions, Councillor DeAndrade?
So this would be a line item at this point, or would they have to submit every year?
I think right now we're just allocating the funds as the recommendation in this budget. I think we'd probably have to look at we'd have to decide that in the next budget process.
I support that, we don't have to go through this.
And we have the
whole thing.
funds in our, in that grants of assistance line, so that's, Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor White. If I recall correctly, when we initially increased the grants of or the funding for victim services, it was an agenda item that came up after Victim Services had done a delegation to council. And I think it would be useful to invite Victim Services to do a follow-up delegation, give us a little more information on the services that they do provide to the community, because I think it is quite extensive. And I think it would be in their best interest just to refresh our memories as to the services they provide and the costs that they incur in doing so.
Okay. Yeah, we did have some follow-up correspondence from them, and that was some of the information I gleaned for my report. So the recommendation is there on the agenda. Moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any more discussion of the recommendation? All those in favor? That motion carries. Council reports had a number of, oh yeah, there's a 5.9. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. This is an exciting item, so it's an important item. So I'll look to our Director of Infrastructure Services to report verbally on it.
Thank you, Mayor White. I will just provide a quick update on what we are presenting. So this morning, we received some information that led to the timeliness of this report, so I appreciate you making time for it. As part of the 2023 Sanitary Sewer Capital Plan, Council approved $200,000 to purchase a spare diesel pump for emergency use. This budget amount was based on the cost to purchase a new pump to match the one that the town rented in 2022 when the Proust Road lift station was experiencing electrical issues. Since the budget was adopted, staff have been in discussion with the owner of that pump that we rented, and as of this morning, we received a written quote to purchase the used pump from that contractor for $45,000. Given the significant savings, we feel this is money well spent with some additional funds for servicing and potentially replacement of some minor parts. We should have the spare pump on hand for $50,000 to $60,000. Meanwhile, operations staff have been looking into opportunities to reduce the water consumption at the wastewater treatment plant, which is the highest single water user in town. Our operations have developed a plan to recirculate treated effluent to use at various points in the process at the plant, mostly for backwash and flushing pumps, which would reduce the use of potable water at the plant by upwards of 90%. This would be in the range of 40 to 100 cubic meters of water a day that could stay in the aquifer or be rerouted elsewhere as needed. This is the equivalent of roughly 50 to 130 households. The reclamation system would be expandable to meet increased flows as the town grows. This includes plans to reuse some of the equipment from the Parkland geothermal system when it is decommissioned once that equipment becomes available. The cost estimate to implement the water reclamation system at the plant is $80,000, and it could be operational within 6 weeks of approved funding. This will provide a significant operational benefit as we enter what appears to be an extended dry period. Staff recommend that the remainder of the spare diesel pump for emergency use budget be reallocated to fund the water reclamation project at the treatment plant. Thank you, and we'll turn it over for any questions.
Okay. First, I just want to suggest on the item of communications, I think this is really exciting and significant. And considering we didn't have a written report, we didn't have time for a written report in this agenda, given that just learning about it today, I think it should be a priority to get some communications out about this. Should council support it tomorrow, like a press release? So I just wanted to make that comment first. Any questions on this, Councillor Kroll?
Not really a question, Mayor White. I'm just kudos to staff. This is, and I think, the communicating of this out is really important because it just goes to show the community how dedicated our staff is and how proactive they are trying to be efficient with tax dollars. So kudos to staff. Earlier today, there was an incident on our parking lot, and in the blink of an eye, it was fixed. So I'm really impressed with staff right now.
And the creativity too. I really sense this had a lot to do with a number of people working together and ideas being supported from people at the wastewater treatment plant, and their expertise really being respected and followed through. And this is something that we can support too by council showing our support and following through on this motion. So that the motion is also not in the agenda, of course, but I've been emailed a drafted wording, which is that council authorize any remaining funds originally allocated in 2023 to purchase the emergency spare diesel pump be allocated to fund the wastewater treatment plant water reclamation project. So that's the wording I got, moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor Thompson. And I just want to make sure that wording still works for staff. That's the one I received in the afternoon. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That motion carries. And yes, now on to the council reports. So good to get a number of reports again. Are there any questions for anyone who did reports? Okay, they're all there written for everyone to see. So moving on, 7.1, our next regular meeting of council will be held on Tuesday, July 4th, 2023 at 7 p.m. And now we need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded Councillor Lumley. All those in favor? The motion carries. The meeting's adjourned. At 7:37.